recently we talk more on China in Latin America. And now I'd like to reverse. We talk Latin America in China. And secondly, maybe talk a little bit on what we are doing in CICIR as a representative of the Chinese academic community, what we are interested in researching on Latin American related topics, maybe interesting topic for the academic circle here. But before I present my 2 points, I'd like to respond to two questions. One is on the political risks for Chinese investment in Latin America and in Africa. I think just now Professor Chen gave a very excellent presentation on China-Latin American relations. As for the political risks, I think any investment in anywhere in the world has political risks. For example, today, our biggest concern for our investment risks is not in Africa, it's not in Libya, in Latin America, but it's in the United States, because we more than one third of our foreign reserve, that is almost 1.2 trillion US dollars, are invested in national bonds in the States. So given the last round of your debt ceiling debate in the States and the possible risks of your debt default, it's the biggest debate in the last 2 months in China. So lots of citizens and people just criticize Chinese Bank of China, criticize Chinese government, pouring lots of investment in your national bonds. This example shows that the risks existed everywhere, no matter you are democracy, non-democracy, Africa, Latin America, or the United States. So any investment has its political risks. Secondly, I think we have already aware of that our investment in Africa, in Latin America, maybe has higher political risks. In Sudan, in current Libya case, so we double check when we lax decision to invest in those areas. But we are confident that even if we have some risks, we bet on the successor of the former government can still, preserve our basic security. For example, we are in the first groups in the international community to admit the Libya transitional commission. I think one biggest reason for China to admit the transitional commission of Libya is for preserve our 18.8 billion Chinese investment in that country. So we are reviewing. And thirdly, I think we began to think about how to preserve our overseas assets and investments. That's why we joined the peacekeeping operation. So we are very actively in the peacekeeping activity in Somalia with the American. We have a very good cooperation with the American counterpart in the peacekeeping activity in the Indian Ocean and with against Somalia, case. And finally, I think we don't have safe haven in the world. I think the safest way to keep our investment is to have a multilateral cooperation in the world. So back to my presentation. My first point is how to view Latin America in China's overall strategy. I think 10 years ago when we talk about Latin America, maybe if you ask Chinese people, the first thing for them to think is that Chairman Mao's concept of Latin America. Because during Chairman Mao's era, Asia, Africa, Latin America are all viewed the third world. According to his famous three words concept, Latin America, Africa, Asia, we share the third world. So third world people are all friends. So we have a very good memory of Chairman Mao's definition of Latin America. And then maybe 5 years ago, when you ask China, what's your impression of Latin America, that is maybe soccer, football team in Brazil, Argentina, because lots of fans in China for. But today, when you talk about Latin America in China's overall foreign policy strategy, I think more complicated. As I mentioned earlier, when we talk about China's grand strategy, I think I tried to find where Latin America in Chinese overall strategy. Our strategy maybe can list it another category. We have a doctrine called harmonious world. We want to pursue the so-called harmonious world. We call it the Hu Jintao's doctrine, like Bush's doctrine. But what is a harmonious world is, nobody knows. That is our ideal world. It's a long way to pursue. Under that, our strategy is a peaceful development. Under the peaceful development, we have 4 pillars to sustain this grand strategy. The first is the big power relations. The relations with the big powers is the key of our grand strategy, which things we put our relations with big powers very important. The relations with the United States is the first priority of our overall diplomacy. And the relations with Russia, with the European Union, with Germany, Great Britain, France, Japan. Now maybe in the big powers camp, we add 2 more, maybe 3 more. One is India. Another is Brazil. Maybe South Africa. So Brazil is the newcomer of our camp of big powers relations. That's why we put the Sino-Brazilian relations very important in this category. The second pillar is surrounding countries. Our relations with the surrounding countries is the priority of our overall diplomacy, because first of all, still a regional power. Our relations with the surrounding countries is the priority. How to define the priority and the key depends. Maybe key means more important, but more important not necessarily means the priority. Not that maybe priorities means more urgent. Some more urgent tasks for us to deal with our surrounding countries. Surrounding countries means Asian Pacific region, ASEAN, Japan, South Asians. But today, there's a new concept in China. We should have greater surrounding countries, greater neighborhoods, which means, as Ms. Sari mentioned, Pacific Rim should be our surrounding countries. In the West Wing, maybe Middle East. In the East Wing, maybe Latin America. All those countries can be viewed our surrounding countries. And the third category, third pillar is developing countries. The relations between China and the so-called developing countries is the base for Chinese overall diplomacy, because we are developing countries. So our relations with all those developing countries still constitute the base for Chinese overall diplomacy. And we view Latin America as in the camp of developing countries. In that term, I think we think our relations with Latin Americans is very important. And the final pillar is the multilateralism. We think multilateralism is the platform of our China's overall diplomacy, because through the multilateralism, China can perform our new performance and the new activities and the new ideas. So in terms of multilateralism, I think one newest platform is, which for us is very important, is the BRICS. BRICS is a very important multilateralism, and Brazil still in this camp. So generally speaking, I think in our research on Latin Americas, the first is China-Brazil relations. I think is one of the priority, because Brazil is both big powers and BRICS, multilateralism, and broader developing countries and surroundings. And the second is our relations with those very special countries, which has a special relations with China historically and currently, like Cuba, Venezuela. Given this special position in this region, special meaning for China, socialist countries, identity, special relations in history with China. So we still view those countries very specially. Not friendly, but very specially. How to transform the special relations with those countries into normal relations is our task in the future. And the third category for our relations with interest in developing countries in Latin America is those emerging markets, emerging countries in this region, Chile, Argentina, Mexico, and Peru, those countries. And the fourth category for the Latin American countries is that I did not mention earlier, that's Taiwan-related countries. There are maybe 11 or 12. There are 12 countries in this region has not yet established normal relations with China. The reason is that they have formal relations with Taiwan. Given one China principle, those countries has relations with Taiwan cannot have formal relations with us. So how to balance the relations between mainland China and Taiwan, and how to deal with those special triangular relations is our one of the important tasks. So our relations with the Latin American, maybe 1/3 is Taiwan-related tasks. And the final focus on our relations with Latin America is Mr. Yang mentioned the triangular relations: U.S., Latin America, China, EU, Latin American, China, Japan, Latin American, China, and the one special triangular is Spain, Chinese, Spanish, Latin America, Chinese, Portugal, and Latin American relations, because those two countries have very special historical links with Latin American relations. Through China and Spain and Portugal relations, we can have better understanding of current Latin American countries. Those five, I think, constitutes at least a kicker focus for us to research on Latin American relations. And I'm very optimistic in developing China-Latin American relations, given three basic no's. First of all, we have no political and ideological conflict with all those Latin American countries. We do have ideological and political conflict with the States, with the European, with Japan, but we don't have this sorts of contradiction with Latin America. The second no is no geopolitical conflict. We have a geopolitical conflict or potential conflict with the ASEAN countries, just because of we are close neighbor, South China Sea, but in the other side of Pacific, we don't have a geopolitical conflict with Latin America. This constitutes another base for the future cooperation. And the third no is no historical contradictions. we have a historical memory with many European countries given the Opium War. We have a historical memory with Japan given the Sino-Japanese War, and Russia given our lots of territories are invaded by Russia, and the States given Korean War and Vietnamese War. But we don't have a historical legacy with Latin America. So those three nodes constitute the base for the optimistic relations between China and Latin America. Let alone today we share the same period of rising and common development, and seize the opportunity in the globalization era to simultaneously development. So I myself is quite optimistic in the future of China and Latin American relations.